So this is the first of our speaker sessions on our Representation Month. And although different people feel differently about the word representation, I think it's really exciting to be able to spotlight members of our community that have taken a different journey that maybe we're not familiar with in the everyday life. So tonight we have the pleasure and privilege of having four really great members of the entertainment world on our entertainment panel. I'm not going to go through all of their bios. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as they share with you their journeys, the highs, the lows, the frustrations, the opportunities, and the learnings, etc. And I think if we start with Lawrence tonight, if that's okay. Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome to Midweek Matters.
Hi, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So, Lawrence, perhaps you can start by just telling everybody who you are, what you do, and just a little bit about your story.
Sure. Okay. So nowadays, I am a screenwriter and a playwright, and I used to be a stand-up comedian, and so my journey was, well, I've always been obsessed with TV. I love TV. I always wanted to work in TV. And I think when I went to school, that just wasn't an option. It wasn't really talked about. When I'd say that's what I wanted to do, it seemed like I was being fanciful. So I went to a special school. We met two special schools, and they kind of pushed me into doing computing. And the argument for that was I'd be able to work from home, so I never need to go out and never encounter the access barriers. I could earn a good living. And I wanted to do drama. I did drama at GCSE, and then I kind of got put off, and so forced to do, not forced, but encouraged to do computer science. IT's like the new basket weaving. I kind of think as like a stereotypical profession that we get steered towards. I did that for quite a few years. I did a degree, and then I got to the end of the degree, and I there weren't many options. I didn't want to go back home and live with my parents again. Because I think if I'd done that, I'd still be there now. I got independence living at university. Unfortunately, I got quite a good degree, so I had the option to stay on and do a PhD, which I did. And over the course of that, I began to fall out in love with IT more and more and more, particularly because when you do a PhD, I did molecular biology and computing, very specialized. And so it's quite a solitary way of working because it's so specialized. I'm quite a sociable person, so just working on my own in front of a computer in the lab I got more and more depressed to the point where I think I was on the verge of a breakdown, and I had to take a break. And I promised myself that if I went back and got the piece of paper and got the qualification, I'd go and try something I enjoyed. And like, even if I crashed and burned, at least I could say I had a go. So I was always into comedy. I was forever writing comedy scripts and sending them off to places like the BBC, and I'm not really hearing anything back. So I started to do stand-up comedy as a hobby, but then I went to Edinburgh Fringe a couple of times and started getting really good reviews, and gradually found that people were willing to pay me to come and do comedy and make them laugh, which was a bit of a surprise. And gradually I went freelance, and gradually more and more my work became writing and performing comedy. But that was very much live on stage. TV was still very out of bounds. I was still writing scripts, not really getting very far. But my agent around 2010, my wife and I, my wife has cerebral palsy as well, and we were having our second baby. And my agent arranged for this fly on the wall documentary to film us for 7 months while Adele was pregnant, and we had our house knocked down and rebuilt. And it was the most stressful thing I've ever experienced. I will never ever be so stupid as to, agree to be filmed. Actually, I have, because I was in a documentary that Jack made a few years later, but that was a much more positive experience. But I never agreed to do that again. But yeah, gradually started getting more and more progressing with my writing, and just writing is the kind of thing, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So I did. I managed to get to go into the various schemes that TV companies run for disabled people, and they're very much a double-edged sword in that they give you some experience and they can be a way in, but a lot of the time they run for like 3 months or 6 months, and then you're very much back to square one. And to them, I started to do a bit of work, storylining on Hollyoaks, and then I storylined on Coronation Street for a short period as well. I met some like-minded other disabled people working in TV who just started something called the Disabled Artists Networking Community that I now chair and help run. And that came along at just the right time, because TV is slowly waking up and realizing that it has a lot of work to do, basically, to catch up with most other industries in the country when it comes to the inclusion of deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent people. So then lockdown happened, and lockdown actually was great for me in terms of my career, because all my stand-up work dried up overnight. And what it made me do was finally focus seriously on screenwriting, because I didn't have other distractions. So I set myself the task in 2020 to get on one of the main schemes that are run as an entry point for new screenwriters. I spent a year applying and not getting anywhere, and then it got to December and I got on two at once. It's always the way, isn't it? So I did for screenwriting, I did BBC Writers Room Writers Access Group, which is actually open for applications at the moment. And if you are a brilliant disabled screenwriter or want to be disabled screenwriter, I really encourage you to apply. So once I did those courses, I kind of felt like I knew what I was doing a bit more, and hopefully my scripts were improving. And then last year I won the UK TV Writers Slam. 1,600 writers applied, and the 4 winners each got a pilot on Dave. So I got my first 30-minute script pilot. Years of writing pilots, not getting anywhere. It was just amazing to actually make something, and since then I've been working on quite a bit of kids TV, because that's very much a way that new screenwriters get into the industry. So I've been writing on this great show called Gifted, about kids with special powers in a school in Edinburgh that's like Hogwarts. And like I want to love it so much. It's the best, funniest character, has cerebral palsy. That's probably how I got the job of writing on it. But it's great. And more recently, I've been working on a little kid show called Andy and the Band, as well as developing my own stuff. But I kind of realised that if you want to develop your own TV shows, your own projects, it takes years. It takes so long. Everything is so slow. So I've been trying to combine that with working on other people's shows, because that way you actually get stuff made. Because what you find is, when you get into a taxi cab and the taxi driver asks what you do, if you can't say something that they might have seen at some point, it sounds like you're making it up. It sounds like it's all a fantasy. So I feel the need to mix my own stuff with writing for other people, things that actually get made, because it's more satisfying and you can impress taxi drivers.
I think you probably impress more than taxi drivers, Lawrence. Thank you for that, sharing your story. I have so many questions, but I thought we'd open up the floor. So if anybody has any questions directly for Lawrence, it'd be useful to start sharing now, and then we can move to the next person, then perhaps bring Lawrence and all four of you on at the end. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think this is where my skills of who I think I can see that Dean's hands up. I'm going to spotlight Dean as well.
Okay, thank you, Emma.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Lawrence. Sorry for calling you Tom. Don't know who he is, but never mind. Yeah, he's my nephew actually, but I know you're not my nephew.
My son is called Tom, actually.
Oh right. Oh well, what a good name. There you go. Yeah, I wanted to just to ask you, Lawrence. You know, like you said about you that you went on a few like script sorry, writing courses. So like say for example, I don't know by who to say from ITV or the BBC. I don't know there are more of these kind of courses opening up now. Do you think that they're and Channel 4 as well? Do you think that they help? Do you think that they help disabled people more, or you know, get getting sort of good to get into the writing industry, if you like, the creative writing industry.
Yeah, I think so. There's one which is BBC Writers Room Writers Access Group, which is actually targeted at disabled writers. That's only for disabled writers. In a bit, I'll find the link and put it in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, people are interested.
Yeah.
Also, Triple Seed, my organisation that runs down the Disabled Artists Networking community. We run mentoring and webinars for disabled writers as well. So I'll put the link to that in. I think I kind of think what's happened, having sat in a few writers' rooms now, I don't think it was ever intentional not to include disabled characters and not to give them interesting storylines that show. I think writers were just scared. They were just scared because this is something new, something outside of their own experience. Writers tend to write, albeit they use their imagination, but it's also mixed with their own personal experience. And so often you just wouldn't get disabled characters, or when you did, like I noticed on soaps, you would often have disabled characters, but then you don't really get storylines. They're kind of there, but very much like when I've worked on soaps, you can see there's like A-list characters who get stories every week, and then there'd be like the B-list ones that kind of support the A-list ones that have stories, but don't really often get their own stories. And I think that's where disabled characters are fallen, because there's something a bit outside the writer's experience. So having disabled writers in the room, I think will change that, because when I'm in the writer's room, I actually stick my hand up. I want to write for the disabled characters, because that's easier for me, because it's more within my lived experience.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much, Lawrence. It's very interesting. And I thought it was interesting when you said that when you said that it was never intentional that you know because I think around the sort of like 90s and things like that when basically it was just like the BBC programs unit, and I know Channel 4 were doing different things as well, but I don't think even then I know Channel 4 did, and the BBC, there were opportunities to go, but I think perhaps it was even felt a bit more out of people's reach than perhaps it does now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much anyway, Lawrence. Cheers. Thanks.
Yes, Dean.
Thank you, Dean. I have to concur, just our experience with talking to the community. Often the message that we're getting is, I want to be recognised for who I want to be seen, for somebody for doing the job that I'm doing and not doing the job because I'm a disabled person. Do you think that having people on the TV, it feels to me that that television is one of the places where we can start changing the conversations. I don't know what you think about that.
Oh, entirely.
Because you said that TV's behind.
Yeah, yeah.
But ironically, they're the people that I think that might make the most difference. I don't know.
Yeah, because particularly when we're growing up, so much of what we accept as every day comes from what we see on TV, and so if we're not seeing people like us on TV, then that's got to have a knock-on effect on your aspirations, on your self-esteem. So absolutely, this is key to a lot of other areas of life.
Brilliant, and I think that's concurring. If you can see it, you can be it.
I can see that now.
Yeah. I think Tommy has a question for you. I'm going to spotlight you, Tommy.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi, Tommy.
Sorry, I'm a bit nervous and I'm very fidgety when I'm nervous, so apologies in advance for that. But I just wanted to say, I'm sort of where you were a few years ago. I've just sort of not dropped out completely from uni, but I've told them I'm taking a year out. I'll come back and repeat a year when I come back, because I was on the verge of a breakdown as well. I think I was very burnt out.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in a position now where I'm deciding what I want to do going forward, because there's TV courses nearer to where I live, and I'm kind of torn between that thing of, do I stick at uni? Do I do something different? I've got that indecision at the moment. So how did you decide what you were going to do?
What are you doing at uni, Tommy?
English and creative writing, but that's like 95% English literature and maybe like one creative writing module if you're lucky.
Yeah. So what was your question?
But just like when you were sort of stuck in deciding what to do going forward, how did you sort of break yourself out of that inertia? Because I tend to freeze up and not really know what to do. I get a lot of decision anxiety.
Yeah. I think it's when you're young, a lot of pressure gets put on you around exams and uni, and you kind of start to think that this is going to be your only shot. And it's not.
It does feel like that sometimes.
You see, the average person has 7 careers over their working life. So you can always, there's always courses, there's always ways to change direction. Maybe if TV is what you want to do, maybe something that's more targeted towards that. might get you there a bit.
Yeah, I was thinking along those lines as well. Maybe I'm being too broad at the moment.
I also sign up for Triple C because it's free and we send you a newsletter twice a week with training opportunities and mentoring opportunities, schemes that broadcasters and channels are running. So it's a good way of keeping up to date with what's out there, specifically for disabled people.
I mean, I know that's the thing for me, is just not knowing where to start when I get myself stuck.
Yeah, yeah. I think. I mean, I did go back when I had my meltdown. I did go back and finish the course, mainly because I wanted people to call me doctor, and that never gets boring.
You say to people, "Trust me, I'm a doctor," because I would always think,
Yeah, no, my t-shirt says, I'm a doctor, to save time, let's just assume that I'm never wrong.
I need that t-shirt.
My
That's good.
wife bought it for me. I think she was being ironic, but
Possibly.
Tommy, it sounds like Lawrence has given you at least a first step, and I
Yeah.
know it sounds like an old adage, but change comes with that first step that you make, and it sounds like he might have a good resource for you to make some decisions.
yeah, sign up to the newsletter and you'll just see what's out there. Yes.
Brilliant.
Okay,
Thank you, Tommy. What I thought we'd do now, Miriam, just looking at the time, should we move on to the next person, and then we'll open it back up to Lawrence at the end? Is that okay, Lawrence? Brilliant. If you've got any more questions for Lawrence, please put them in the chat or hold on to them for the end. I'm going to remove the spotlights from these lovely people. And who's going next, Miriam?
I think it's James.
Oh, hello, James. Hold on. You replace the spotlight and we'll just.
Hi.
Hi, James. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Perhaps you could also share your story and some of your insights of what you've learned about the industry, because you work in a slightly different way within the industry, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm an actor. I'm currently on Emmerdale, the soap on ITV, and I've been doing that for almost 5 years. I started in 2018, and I think especially for me, like growing up, wanting to be an actor, getting involved in theatre, it was quite difficult for me because there was not a lot of disability representation in media, and that can be quite off-putting because in many ways you don't feel like there's necessarily a place for you within that space, and to break into that. So I sort of put off doing it for quite a long time. And I did drama all the way up to school and stuff. And like Lawrence, I was kind of encouraged to do something else because, there was this idea that, they say only a certain percentage of actors ever kind of make it to paying jobs. And then obviously, at the moment, that percentage becomes even smaller when you look at, disabled actors in disabled roles. The pool becomes much, much smaller. So I was kind of discouraged from doing that and went to uni and did photography and performance art. And I love doing performance art and I've gotten back into photography again. But there was still that part of me that kind of wanted to be an actor and wanted to pursue that in a career ultimately. And then I decided to, well, what happened was I saw Breaking Bad and I saw obviously RJ Mitch who played Walt Jr. or Walt White's son who had cerebral palsy. And I was like, wow, this is, this is amazing. I never seen a character with cerebral palsy being played by someone with cerebral palsy. That concept was kind of foreign to me at the time. Because before it always used to be like an able bodied actor playing the disabled part. So that kind of what made me think that perhaps there was some change happening in the industry. So I went to Random Act, which is a subsidiary of Channel 4. And me and my friend were writing just some short comedy sketch about disability. And I got a film produced with them called Spaghetti Legend on YouTube. And then I did National Youth Theatre. I got inspired and did like a month-long course and performed a play at the end of it to various agents and people in the industry. And then for now, I just started kind of shopping around my film to various agents with disabled talent on their portfolio. And yeah, I managed to land an agent through that film. And then the first audition I got from my agent was actually Famidale. So it was very, very lucky it just came around quite quickly for me. And I've been doing that for 4 years. And yeah, I'm still really enjoying it.
Thank you for sharing that, James. I guess you've actually underlined the point that was being made before in that because you saw Breaking Bad and you saw somebody represented with CP, you thought that it was possible for it. What do you think? If there's anybody on here that wanted to kind of go into acting, when you decided, when you saw RJ Mitty and thought, right, this is for me, what were the steps that you took?
Well, quite hard because it's different for everyone. The steps that I took is, look at ways you can get in kind of on the ground floor. Let's say if you've got no experience or anything like that. I had theatre experience before, but I was, I wasn't coming from it at the place where I would be now, because the irony is a lot of people want you to have showreel material, something that's being filmed, and the irony is that in order to get showreel material, often you need to be able to have what was done in the first place. Tips that I would give, probably record yourself, especially for me, having cerebral palsy. And sometimes I kind of slur my words and it might be harder for other people to understand what I'm saying. And I think obviously when you're an actor, diction is really important because you've got to get other people to understand you to get into the whatever you're in. Like, so recording yourself and being not necessarily critical, but aware of how you come off to camera, because your head voice and your actual voice are very different. You know, I tend to be quite lazy a lot of the time and speak quietly or slur my words. And being able to watch myself while it's hard to do at first give me the opportunity to really sort of hone my skills and improve on what I do. So I think that's been a really good way of improving how I work. And also getting used to not necessarily failure, but that. So, you know, when you go for an audition, you got to that point, you've got an agent, or you're going for an audition. It's very common just to not get the first role that comes to you. I didn't realise how lucky I was. But it's important, I feel like, not to get too hung up on any one thing, because the most important thing is that you get yourself back out there and keep looking for stuff, or keep self-promoting, which is also really important. And then something will find its way to you, you know?
Before I open it up to questions, James, I just wanted to ask you on a kind of more broader context about, because it is CP Awareness Month and we're talking about representation, although Miriam knows I hate that term. But in terms of the industry, what do you think needs to happen next in order for there to be more opportunities, or for there to be, I know that Lawrence talked about more disabled writers, therefore more disabled characters. But perhaps what do you think needs to happen next, and what are the obstacles that you think are stopping more people with disabilities going into the acting world?
Well, yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Obviously, having more disabled writers is going to be a gateway for more disabled characters, because people are going to write from experience. So I think that's really important. And obviously, disabled writers are going to better understand the disabled experience rather than, you know, having it come from an able-bodied perspective. So sort of going into the future, what I'd like to see is hopefully completely cutting out the idea that an able-bodied actor can play a disabled character, because if we actually need to sort of cut that out entirely, then it gives space to disabled actors and creators that can come up and fill those roles who may not be getting recognition that they deserve, because, you know, casting people want to just hire the biggest star to come in and play this disabled character or whatever. So I think there needs to be a conversation about, you know, having disabled people playing disabled characters. And I think that's the next kind of big hurdle that we need to kind of overcome. And then after that, I would like to see disability more normalised on screen. I feel like, based on a lot of reception from people that I've had watching Emmerdale, a lot of people don't necessarily know too much about disability, and, you know, obviously TV is a window into our culture, right? And disabled people are part of our culture, and I think they are being severely underrepresented. And you are imitated life, right? So if you have more disabled people on TV and in the media, then, you know, people can understand more about what we go through and how we feel, and our, our struggles we have had in life. And I think that will help. It won't do all of the work, but it will help society as a whole become more tolerant of disability and more understanding, because especially through the pandemic and what we've had go through the pandemic, a lot of disabled people have had to, isolate for longer and be in their homes for longer. Disabled people who've still been shielding for a long time after restrictions were lifted. And you see so many people talking about, why do we still need to wear a mask? Why do who even cares anymore? This whole thing. I feel like disability isn't quite in these people's minds and they're not really considering it. So I think having more representation in media could definitely help people sort of understand where we're coming from and our perspective, and generally just become kind of more compassionate.
Fabulous. Tommy, is it okay if you just hold on to your question, because I'm going to go to Jack next to make sure that everyone gets some time, and then we'll come back for questioning. I'm not the most brilliant timekeeper, so I'm just trying to give everyone a chance. So who are we going to next? To Jack. Let me just try and find him on my screen. Ooh.
Hello.
Hello, Jack. There we go.
That's my face on.
Hi.
How about that? Hi everyone. Nice to see you all and hear you all. I do apologize if my boiler makes involuntary noises. I say it's the boiler, it's probably me. But so yeah, my name's Jack Hunter, and I'm an actor and writer based in Edinburgh. But I'm from Inverness originally, and I first started, like much of what Lawrence and James have said, like in school I had like a keen interest in drama, and I think when I was younger, like lots of kids my age would probably watch, CBeebies and stuff. And my mum and dad let us watch like Father Ted and like Blackadder. So I had like quite a good like comedy upbringing. So I just always enjoyed telling stories. And in school for me, drama was just the obvious choice, because I just found it completely accessible for me. Like and since then, I think, what was it, the first class we ever did was about doing tableaus and like frozen pictures, like play tennis, play pool, and I was like, oh, quite good at this. And since then it kind of kept going, and my parents I think were just happy that I'd found something, like a form of sort of like self-expression. So I was really happy with that. I was just going to stick with it. And then through school, I like luckily got into uni, Queen Margaret University. I was on the drama and performance course there. I graduated from there in 2017, and I really enjoyed that course because it was super mixed. Like, it wasn't just an acting course. There was a lot of theory, and we learned a lot of sociology and stuff like that, and just figuring out how the world works. And I always, through lived experience that I'll touch on later on, I always felt like I was more aware of stuff going on. Like, I always wanted to, like, not in a sort of Superman, Spider-Man sense kind of way, but more sort of just, I think I became more political, I think, like, even from like a young age, and I wanted to kind of talk about those sort of stories. And I really got into like satirical sketch comedy in uni, and I kind of wanted to kind of pursue that out with. And actually, I actually got into acting. I kind of fell into it backwards, because a lecturer of mine told me about a project. This was in 2018, called it was the Sky Arts 50 project, and the theatre comedy company Told by an Idiot were doing an opportunity where they were looking for a cohort of non-disabled and disabled performers to do like an improv lab workshop. So that was great for me. Like, so someone who'd grown up watching like Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson hit each other with frying pans, like I was like, I'm actually getting to do it and like kind of unleash my sort of inner clown. And then through that, they asked me if I wanted to do their full-blown show, which was called All You Need Is LSD. And that was a great show. Not because we were microdosing or anything like that, but because it was a show in which I played so many different characters, and my disability was not like it was not thought about. Like I was playing, all these different people and free to explore my own physicality within these characters, and actually within the entire creative process, the only thing that was mentioned was about my access needs. I think it was just sort of like, we don't think Jack would be able to do this. It was just sort of, okay, Jack's struggling to get to the top of the set. We need to put another like run in the ladder. And that was it. So like to be in that situation where I could draw my lived experience and discuss certain things, but also just enjoy performing was brilliant. And of course, like, disability has informed my work, and particularly my acting work. Like, and I think that's a great thing as well, being able to tell stories. But it was really liberating to have those two experiences of just being able to be a performer, and then also, when depending on the job, being able to tap into my own lived experience. And then after the Told by an Idiot show, at that point I had no agent or anything like that. I'd email loads and loads of people, like to try and get people to come and see, and they're sort of like, what, you're not doing a show in London? Oh well, we're not going to come then. But I got cast in a show called Cost of Living, which was at the Hampstead Theatre, and that was in I think that was that was early 20. What was that? That was 2019. And off the back of that, I got an agent, and everything started to kind of turn. The wheels would turn for me there, and that show was really interesting for me because I was playing a wheelchair user with cerebral palsy, and that's a really interesting conversation there. Like, I've got a twin sister with cerebral palsy, who I'll talk about in a couple moments. But like, doing that show was interesting. Because initially I was like, well, I don't know if I should be doing this role. Like, maybe they should be getting someone who's a wheelchair user with CP. And it was after the conversation with the director and the writer, like after the first audition, I was able to go, okay, I feel safe doing this. I feel like I'm able to do it justice and talk about this story. So after I did that show, things started to happen. I got in contact with some brilliant disabled-led theatre companies like Grey Eye Theatre, which are based in London. I've done work with them, stage and radio work. There's also a fantastic disabled-led company in Scotland called Birds of Paradise, which is in connection which I worked with Lawrence on that documentary. I wasn't in his house though. And I wasn't with him for, how long was it, Lawrence? A few months? I think you only had to put up with me for a couple of days, so it wasn't too bad. That was a documentary made in conjunction with Bobath Scotland, now Cerebral Palsy Scotland, and it was supported by the NTS, Scottish National Theatre, and it was a project called You've Got to Be Ballsy. Stories from the front line of cerebral palsy, and that came from a poem that I wrote called "You've Got to Be Ballsy to Have Cerebral Palsy." Hardy har har har. So that was a great experience for me, being able to kind of build on my experience as like a presenter and as a broadcaster, and that was great. And like what Lawrence was saying in terms of lockdown, I mean, that was a scary time for everyone. And, particularly for myself, like in terms of like, having anxiety and stuff, I was like, is this a test? But actually, it was a really fruitful period for me. Like, I was able to sort of pick up my journey as a writer again, which is fantastic. It was something that I wasn't really able to do or pursue. And actually, during that time, I applied for a writer program with Birds of Paradise. It was a joint award with the Playwright Studio of Scotland, and it was a disabled playwright award. And I pitched this idea of writing a play about me and my twin sister growing up with cerebral palsy, and it was basically examines the failures of the education system. And what I thought was really interesting about that was exploring the intersectionality of our life experience and the divergence of our experience in school. Because unfortunately my sister didn't really get the support that was required, and she went around this merry-go-round of schools, and then she actually ended up campaigning and lobbying the local council to put up the funds for her to go to this tree law specialist college, and which was life-changing for her. But I just remember just thinking, this is ridiculous. We're the same age. We both got cerebral palsy. How can it possibly be because my access needs are slightly reduced? How can this be fair? So I pitched that idea, and I developed that over COVID. And then there was an award. This would have been last year, so this would have been 2022. There was an award called the Mary Dick Award by the venue Summerhall, the Summerhall venue, which has a very sort of always have exciting festival programs for the Edinburgh Fringe, and they were looking for a disabled artist to fill a gap for equality, which is what we like. So I pitched that idea, and yeah, I was very, very happy to get the award. And last year I staged One of Two, which is the show at the Fringe, and it was a brilliant experience to be able to sort of show my work as a writer and as an actor. And that was produced in association with Birds of Paradise, and it was directed by Robert Softly Gale, the director of Bop, who Lawrence also knows as well. He's very mischievous. Well, both Lawrence and Robert are mischievous, but there we are. And yeah, that was a fantastic opportunity, and it had no money. We had like a $5. The design, I had a couple of conversations after the show, and they're like, yeah, the design was a bit lacking. And I was like, I just had 2 pennies to rub together. But it got really nice reviews, and it got nominated for the Scottish Theatre Awards, and as of now, the show has been developed with Imaginate, the children's theatre company in Edinburgh, in association with NTS, with the scope to putting it into schools, which is just really exciting. I think it's like, to be able to talk about the schooling system and social issues like bullying and being different, to be able to say that to school kids is super empowering. And so we've done that. We've done the sort of development for it. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's some interesting stories about that development, but there's I'm quite mindful of time. In terms of that show, I'm also looking to develop it further, get some money to use up the design, So I'm working on an application at the minute, and I'm taking it to the Netherlands, the Stet Festival in The Hague, this year in October, which is cool, and hopefully getting dates penciled in with Assembly Roxy to kind of tie in with that. But I've got a couple nice conversations lined up with some English venues as well. So maybe I'll be coming south of the border. So that'll be nice.
We look forward to hosting you, Jack. There's some lovely questions in the chat, but what I'm going to do, because Natalie's question was to everybody, I'm just going to finish off with Karen, and then we'll open it up. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Is that
perfect.
okay with everybody?
Yeah, you need to stop me from talking anyway. So, like, you know.
No, I could listen to you all day, but thank you very much for sharing. I've just lost Karen on my screen.
Would that be easier if I talk?
Now I'm going to find you. Hold on. This is my coordination gone wrong. Just talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, maybe if I talk, I'll jump to the
You can start talking and I'll find you.
Hello everyone. You'll see me in a minute. I'm currently, my voice is coming out of Jack's camera. Look at that. If you move your mouth, you've got my voice.
There we go. Sorry.
That's all right. My name's Karen. I'm an actor, activist. I'm 21, and I'm stupidly trying to do a degree whilst also being a full-time actor. Don't do that. It's not fun. It's really, really quite stressful. But hey, we are where we are. I've done a few short films and stuff like that. I had a short film at the BFI Film Festival a couple of years ago. I've got lots of exciting stuff coming out this year, which I annoyingly can't talk about. My route into acting was I started at school basically, and it started with not being allowed to do a particular show, which I thought was slightly strange. So that's where, for me, the kind of spark between acting and activism came. I see those two things are very much in the same kind of, the same realm of what I need to do. I work a lot in representation, so making sure that it's all well and good getting disabled characters on screen, but the representation has to be positive, and not overly positive, because that's another problem. We don't want to make the representation of disabled people too good that we become superhumans, because I think that's damaging for other reasons. But yeah, so that's the kind of work I do, and I'll be slightly brief, so hopefully we can get through some more questions later. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. I worked with the National Youth Theatre. I was the first person with CP to join it. Well, they told me that, but after listening to tonight, I don't think that can be true. He said that I was the first person with CP to join the National Youth Theatre. So from that, I got lots of opportunities for auditions, and then I met my agent and I kind of got lots of other opportunities, which have been amazing. So that's kind of where I am. I kind of work behind the scenes and on camera, and yeah. So there you go. I hope that gives a quick overview of what I do.
Brilliant. It's lovely to see your face. Sorry about that. I just before we open it up to wider questions, do you think you could expand a little bit about what you said around that you see acting and activism going hand in hand?
Yes, of course. So my catchphrase that I'm trying to get out there, both behind the camera and in front of, is diversity without disability is not diversity. And when I watch people make speeches or talk about diversity, I'm still astounded that when they reel off their lists, they forget disability, and it's the biggest minority group. Disabled people make up pretty much a fifth of the British population, and yet we're ignored, and it's ridiculous. So it's about ensuring that when we get our message out there, that we kind of ensure that people like see us, hear us, listen to our stories. So hopefully that will make sure we get more disabled people in positions of power, like the three speakers before me. It's very nice to meet James and Lawrence and them, because I've followed your work a lot previously. So thank you, basically. So that's how I see activism and acting. They coincide for me. I can't do one without the other.
Fabulous, thank you. So what I'm going to try and do now, by the power of technology, is to put all four of you on the screen and then open up to questions. There's a couple on the chat, which I know that Miriam will go through, and then there's some hands going up. So if you just bear with me for 2 minutes, I will find everybody. Just see if I can do it as quickly as I possibly can. There we go, everybody should be there now. There we go. So do we want to kick off with Mandy?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm never sure if this thing works. I just want to say it's more of an observation than a question, but I really enjoyed listening to all you guys. You're all really quite inspiring. But James, I used to watch Emmerdale years ago, and then I stopped. And then a couple of years ago, I put it on and I saw yourself on the TV. And I says to my daughter, I think that actor's got CP. But I wasn't sure. And then since that, because you were on it, I started to watch you because I was thinking it was something that you touched on. Like years ago, there was an actor. Now I can't remember what is Chris Tate played, and he was able-bodied, and then in the storyline, then they got disabled, and so he was like an able-bodied person that was playing the part of somebody in a wheelchair. And I said to my daughter, that's great, there's actually got a disabled guy who's actually is disabled and not like that other actor who was like in the wheelchair but wasn't really in the wheelchair. And I thought it was really inspiring to see like yourself on screen who actually needed a wheelchair. And you touched on that. But I think there needs to be a lot more representation. This isn't about CP, but I've got an uncle who is actually blind. And when you think about it, there is no blind actors on screen or anything like that. And I think there needs to be more more open for people with all sorts of different things, all sorts of different disabilities to be represented. But I just really wanted to say I found you guys really inspirational. And Jack, I went to the Fringe, and I'm sorry I missed you. I think that would have been really good to see you.
Don't worry, it was in a morning slot as well, so there were times where almost I didn't make it.
No, the Fringe were really good, but again, like it's like shows and things, but there isn't really a lot of disabled people in that either. You know, when you look at it, but I didn't realise that like what you guys were saying about there's like a big there's companies out there that does that for disabled people. So I think it's really good. And just thank you, and I've really enjoyed listening to you. So thanks, guys.
No worries.
Brilliant,
Yeah,
thank you,
mm.
Mandy.
Mhm.
Before I come to you, Dina, I'm just going to answer a couple of the ones in the chat. Miriam, have you got those, or do you want me to read
Yeah,
them?
I've got a question for all the speakers from Nat. Nat, do you want to ask it or do you want me to read it?
I don't mind asking it.
Go for it,
Just
Nat.
full disclosure, I have COVID, so if I start coughing, that's why. But we'll just ignore that for now. It's a bit of a two-parter question. I just kind of like put all my thoughts down, so I apologize. But yeah, I just wondered, like, let me find it. Hang on. Wait. Got it. Okay. I just wondered, like, for all of you, do you feel that you have a sense of, I guess, like responsibility kind of continuing that disability representation to kind of future generations? What kind of prompted that was, James, you mentioned about, is it RJ Mitty from Breaking Bad, and that you were inspired by him? Do you like, for all of you, do you feel like you kind of have a responsibility to carry that baton on? Like, and I know I said that if you can see it, you can be it thing. So, like, I don't know, do you feel that, and that responsibility, if you don't feel like that, does that actually lie further up the chain? So looking at like casting directors, looking at people who put on these shows, that kind of thing. And then secondly, I'm just going to get it all out there, so happy to come back to them if needed. When we reach the point where disability is the norm in sort of creative industries. And I say creative industries because I work for a music charity, so I'm coming at it kind of from a music background, but obviously it all kind of comes together. Do you think that representation, that baton would become less needed?
I think it's a really valid question. I think like what everyone said before and what Kieran said about like activism and like art going hand in hand, I think that's completely valid, and that's definitely how I feel. However, like I think if you were to think about it, like, you need to try and uphold the entire sort of community, or you could get crushed by the pressure. So I think when I go up for auditions or when I read scripts, more often than not, 90% of them are for disabled characters. And the really good scripts are scripts where the disability is incorporated within the character, and it's not defining the character, or it's like they're disabled and that's their thing. And I've got to the point now where I've had I always make sure I'm always asking questions like, what is this character saying? Does it perpetuate a good narrative? Like, does it have any negative connotations? Like, I think like it's important to interrogate as an actor the material that you're going to potentially work with. And I have got to the point as well where if there's something that I just don't like, I just say I'm not going to tape for it. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. Like, there was one script I got for a TV show, which I won't name.
Oh, go on.
No.
Sorry.
This is going to be public. This is going on YouTube.
Dragon.
And it was this disabled character, who basically couldn't date or anything like that, and nobody, like, didn't have much luck when it came to dating. And it was just a really contrived narrative in which, like, their sister was trying to get them on Tinder, but it wasn't Tinder, it was like an escort app. And I was like, this is a car crash. And then there was a scene later on in the script where it was like sitting on the bench with a potential love interest, or I think it was some random guy. and they were like, "Oh, no one's gonna love me because of this," and it like and the direction was like indicates body, and I was like, "Right, that's it. I'm not I'm not reading this anymore." I should have known because it was all in caps. I should have known. But yeah, seriously, I think it's good to be conscientious with the material, and then as a writer, and I'm sure Lawrence can certainly testify to this more than I can. Like, I think to have that opportunity to like create stories and tell them from that lived experience, which is genuine, I think that's great. Like, to have an opportunity to try and shape a narrative is important. I hope that's answered some of the question.
Can I go next?
Yes.
I can't quite remember the question, but I remember you were talking about the responsibility of representation. I think it was Emma who said she doesn't like that term representation. And I have to say, I'm kind of with Emma. I think we're reaching the point where we don't need representation, because what we're building is a growing community of bloody talented disabled actors, performers, writers, people behind the camera. I kind of implied with that word representation that we have to be there, to represent disabled people. Whereas I think we're reaching the point where they can't ignore us because there's so much talent now, and TV is hungry for stories. They always want the next story, and there's only so many stories. So what they look for are different ways to tell those stories, different angles, different slants. And what they're waking up to is that our lived experience is a way of making those stories new and fresh again. So I really hope that we are moving away from representation and towards employing disabled talents, because they just can't ignore us anymore.
Thank you, Lawrence. Does anybody else have anything to say? You don't have to. It's not a test.
Do you want to go, James?
Oh, okay. I think in terms of representation, and the question was, do I feel a sense of responsibility? And I like to pass something on, if I remember correctly. And I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, yeah, I do, because I hope other people will, hopefully my work and you guys' work, and together we can prove to the country or the media at large that we were able to do this, and that will go to like casting directors as well, and people will understand that we are capable of this kind of work. But also, I think the responsibility does lie with casting directors as well, to be inclusive and to make sure, they're giving disabled people a chance. Because ultimately, we, apart from maybe Lauren below me, are lonely actors who just kind of go to audition and do our thing and hope that we'll kind of luck out on the part. But in order for us to get those parts need to be accessible to us in the first place. we need to be accounted for within the script, you know. So I think the responsibility is sort of on us now to get out, because we are out there in media and we're doing our thing, but also we need casting directors and people higher up to know that we are capable, and that disabled people should have a role to play in media and in TV and film. So it's a bit of both, really, for me.
Yeah, I get that. It's a difficult one because I've had it before where I got sent auditions and the script is clearly ableist and there's problematic representation in the script, and I've flagged it, and then they said to me, "Okay, so what would you do?" And then it's a difficult one because it's like I'm not being paid to edit their script. I'm not a writer. I'm an actor. But now, so it's like it's finding a balance between not being exploited because of your knowledge. It's like if you want me to advise you, you've got to pay me, but also not just accepting either. Not just going, okay, I'm not a writer, so there's nothing to do with me. I think that's the kind of balance we've got to strike, and I think only us as individuals will know whether or not it feels comfortable.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
No worries.
Miriam, do we have anyone else in the chat? And I'm not ignoring you, Dean. I'm just making sure we've got time for everybody. Oh, you're on mute, Mim.
We just have one comment from Becky. Becky, I don't know if you want to ask it or whether you want me to read it.
If I find it again, I'll ask it. But I just put it there before I forgot later, which I clearly have. Right, okay, I found it. So when we were listening to Jack, I was just thinking about something that he was said when he was looking for an agent about, oh, you're not in London, so I'm not coming to visit you. So I was just sort of a bit like Nat. I put a splurge of stuff down about, does most professional creative disability stuff happen in London then? And does living outside the capital mean that people with disabilities are at a significant disadvantage there? Just from the point of view of there's an increased cost of living in the capital and access to social care and things, or even people having to move to a big city away from home and family networks. So is there a danger that may restrict the amount of people involved going forward? I can already see Lawrence shaking his head.
All of the TV work that I did last year was with companies in Scotland. So
I work in Leeds.
Jack's from Inverness and I'm from Land's End. So I'm right down the bottom in Cornwall. So we are representing every part of the UK, I think, on this panel.
I think it's a myth that's sort of slowly getting busted. I think when I was talking about Costa, it was purely just because I'd done shows before and they didn't have for London agents they didn't want to come to like Liverpool or whatever, and then I had no like Scottish dates, so I was like in like sort of in between. But like, I mean, my agents are based in London and I live in Edinburgh, so like it definitely isn't a be all and end all. And then if any like job that works with you, whether it's like a casting director or whatever, they're worth their salt. They'll put you up like travel costs and all that sort of stuff. So like it's really not a concern. And then obviously like what with COVID happening, everyone's like immediately available with Zoom now. As you know, so it's not really required. I mean, like I think I wouldn't do well in London. I mean, I think I'd end up just living out of a Tesco Metro, and then I'd just make Scottish tap waters.
I spent this morning having meetings at Media City in Manchester, which is this weird kind of TV oasis, but where they make Coronation Street and lots of big kind of game shows. In the last few years, lots of TV programs have deliberately left London and made all over. And yeah, like the other guys were talking about auditions. As a writer, you don't have auditions. You have general meetings, which are just as bad. They're like blind dates. Because you don't know the person that you're meeting, and you have to suss out whether you can spend a large amount of time working with them while they're doing the same to you. It can be excruciating. But no, TV's made all over nowadays.
Fabulous. Thank you. I'm just going to move to Dean because I know we're running out of time and I know he's bursting to ask his question.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's not a question, it's more of an observation. So like basically, I thought Jack's comment about his sister, about you saying that you not felt guilty, but that your sister was having more problems in terms of access to getting on. She went to specialist college, and you were doing your thing, and I think the thing that I wanted to, I thought it was interesting because sometimes disabled people are can be, whatever profession they go into, it can be a bit, not, well, yeah, I wouldn't say bitter, but they seem to be sort of a kind of envy, and they say, oh, how did they get that? Or the parents must have had lots of money if they're doing that. And the thing is, I mean, like in your case, Jack, with your sister, on purely basis of equality, more than it shows that not everything always goes right. So I mean, the sorry, not in terms of you. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That sounded awful. That came out the wrong way. But like what I'm trying to say, things don't always. Like you're one of two. You're a twin, and both CP, and but things can be different for different people. And we should celebrate more. We think we should do more to celebrate disabled people's success, which I think by and large we do. But you do get like the odd people, who are a bit, sort of. And with James here, I've got to say, I can't remember what year it was, but I remember when you got the award for the newcomer of the year, and the way you leapt onto that stage was brilliant, and it was, I'll never forget that. And I just think it was really, really, really good. And I think in general, with all the four of you tonight, it's been a really, really good evening, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
I think just to and thanks so much for your observation. And I know what you mean. I think the interesting thing about my experience with Beck and our connection is that entirely to do with the education point of view, it could have been fixed in the Highlands because it was a failure of facilitation, of just doing reasonable adjustments for her to get her education, reasonable support. And she did go to, as I say, Treloar College, but she actually got her diplomas in Alton College, which is just bog standard college. And and then the Highland Council, I mean, thankfully, forked out the money for it. But I mean, it's not sustainable, I mean, because there's a myriad of disabled people up in the Highlands that will have similar situation, and I think that that is a microcosm of a larger problem. And I think it's just, you can apply that to basically anything. Like if you don't have disabled experts or advisors, whether it's education or then entertainment industry, writers' rooms, actors, casting directors, you're just not going to have a well sort of oiled machine that's sufficient, that can enable us to contribute to society, culture, everything. So I mean, and I think one thing for me as well was to get over this sort of internalized conditioning of the sort of ableist aspects of society. It took me quite a while to accept myself as a fully comfortable with who I was as a disabled person, and I didn't need to adhere to any sort of idealistic expectation. And I think the fact that we're having these sort of gatherings this evening and things are like sort of picking up steam, like we're able to shatter a lot of those misconceptions. So yeah, here's to more of that.
Thank you. I'm just aware that Tommy just put his hand back up, and I know that we're over time by 3 minutes. With everyone's permission, I'm just going to make sure that Tommy gets to say what he wants to say before we finish. Oh, Tommy?
Hang on, my microphone was off.
Oh, okay.
We've all been there. I just wanted to say kind of to everybody, the thing I kept coming back to this whole conversation was a sort of sense of authenticity, and how when you are actually disabled, you bring a sort of depth of lived authentic experience that kind of, even an able-bodied person, a very empathetic able-bodied person can't really bring to it. There's an authenticity, and I think anyone who's part of a minority has that kind of sense for whether representation is authentic or not. It's like you can sort of, maybe not 100%, but you can tell when something's off. So I guess my thing is like, do you think that's where our obligation lies, is to bring that sense of authenticity to telling our own stories rather than, having other people do it for us?
Who wants to take that one?
I'll take that one first. So I think we need to ensure that diversity for my line of work is in front of and behind the camera. I think we do our community a disservice. It's all well and good us actors getting jobs, but if we're not advocating for our community behind the scenes as well, we're missing an opportunity for authentic representation. Well, also we're not realizing the power that we have from my position as an actor. So I think it goes back to what we talked earlier about responsibility. We do have a responsibility to ensure that our stories are authentic. But we I think we all know as disabled people what's good representation and what is bad. So I think we kind of do that naturally. We don't have to necessarily overthink it too much or not stress about it too much. So I'm sure we're gonna do a good representation. We've had enough of the charity stuff. We want good characters.
Does anyone have anything else to say? Or are we happy to leave it there? I know we could talk all evening. Okay, so I'll take your silence as the fact that you're happy to leave it there. Thank you very, very much to all four of you for joining us this evening. I think it's something that we could repeat and we could keep talking about. But I would like to say thank you for all the work that you are doing for us as a community, and thank you for your ongoing support. It really means a lot to us here at UP. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening.